Rachel clutched her phone, heart pounding, as her mother snapped over video call. Rachel, we've had this Broadway night planned for weeks. Don't ruin it. The call ended without ceremony, leaving behind a sharp silence that cut through the sterile air of her hospital room. Outside, Savannah's Christmas lights blinked dimly through a fine drizzle, the colors muddled in the wet glass. The room smelled faintly of peppermint disinfectant and aging vinyl upholstery. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse's soft humming mingled with the steady beeping of machines, trying to pretend it was still a festive night. Rachel sat up slowly, one hand pressed against her abdomen, the other gripping the edge of the thin blanket. She wasn't sure which hurt more, the sharp cramps twisting through her gut, or the hollow ache left by her mother's voice. The gown she wore rustled as she leaned forward, wincing. Her twins, Noah and Lily, were curled together in the portable crib in the corner, a tangle of small limbs and teddy bears. She had tried everyone else. Neighbors were out of town, friends with families of their own. The list had shrunk until only one name remained, her parents. And now even they had crossed her name off theirs. There was a knock at the open door. Margie Ellison, the night nurse with a face like a Christmas card, stepped in, holding a tablet and a warm paper cup. Her gray hair was tucked under a festive cap, and her eyes, lined but kind, softened as she took in Rachel's face. "Sweetheart," Margie said gently, placing the cup on the side table. "You need anything besides acetaminophen and prayers?" Rachel tried to smile but failed. "I asked my parents to watch the twins, just for the night. Surgery's in a few hours." Margie didn't ask how that went. Instead, she sat down beside her, hands folded neatly in her lap. "Back in my day," she said, voice low, "Christmas meant showing up for each other. I don't mean gifts. I mean being there, especially when it's hard." Rachel looked at her, the tears she'd been swallowing rising again. "I know someone," Margie continued. "She used to work with trauma cases. Quiet type, but solid. She watches children now, especially those who've lost someone. Name's Jade Monroe." Rachel hesitated. She had never trusted easily, and the idea of leaving her babies with a stranger when she might not wake up, it froze her breath. "She's good," Margie added. "Better than most family, if you ask me." The last part came with a tight smile that said more than it should. Rachel blinked at the crib. Lily stirred and sighed in her sleep, thumb curled under her chin. "Okay," Rachel said, voice trembling. "Please call her." Margie nodded and rose, her sneakers squeaking softly as she stepped into the hallway. Rachel leaned back against her pillow. A slow ache crept through her shoulders. The room flickered briefly as the hallway lights adjusted. She could hear the gentle tapping of rain against the window now, like fingers on glass, impatient for something to break. On the table beside her, a plastic Santa ornament, probably placed there by a cheerful nurse on day shift, spun slowly from the air vent's draft. It wobbled on its string, revolving aimlessly. Rachel thought of James, gone for 6 months now. He would have handled all this better. He would have made the twins laugh, would have known what to say to her parents. His absence was louder than any argument she could have had. She whispered to no one, "I don't know how to do this." But no one answered. She adjusted her pillow and turned slightly to face the twins. Just seeing them made her heart lurch. If this was the last night she got, she needed to see them safe. She reached for her phone, watching the screen glow as she opened her banking app. With shaky fingers, she canceled the scheduled transfer. It took less than a minute to undo 3 years of guilt-fueled payments. Then in the messaging app, she typed, "I'm choosing my kids this time, not you." She didn't sign it, she didn't need to. There were footsteps in the hallway, soft, deliberate, not the efficient shuffle of nurses, nor the idle chatter of visitors. Rachel looked up, heart tight. Outside the window, the bells from the Episcopal Church on Liberty Street began to chime midnight. 1, 2, 3. The surgical team had arrived. Rachel was being prepped. She looked at her children one last time, memorizing the tiny rise and fall of their chests, the way Noah clutched his threadbare bunny. A nurse helped adjust her IV, then her blankets. Her legs were already starting to numb. A soft knock was heard behind Margie's silhouette. Jade had arrived. Jade didn't look like much, faded jeans, a patched cardigan, but the room calmed the moment she stepped in. She moved without hesitation, quiet but sure, the kind of presence that didn't announce itself, but gently settled into the edges of things. Rachel lay propped in the hospital bed, still pale from anesthesia, an oxygen line tucked discreetly beneath her nose. The hum of machines pulsed softly in the background. Noah stirred first, then Lily. Jade crouched by the portable crib, murmuring a greeting that only they could understand. Her voice had the cadence of bedtime stories and backyard lullabies. She reached into her oversized canvas bag and pulled out a well-loved picture book, the corners frayed, the cover taped. Without asking, she sat on the floor, legs crossed, book open, her tone soothing as waves. Rachel blinked against the dull light. "You must be Jade," she rasped, her throat dry. Jade turned with a smile that barely reached her lips, but her eyes were warm. "I am. Margie said you needed someone. I don't come with a cape or fairy dust, but I know my way around twins." "They warm to you fast," Rachel said, managing a weak laugh. "I tend to let kids lead," Jade replied. "They usually know better than we do." Rachel studied the woman on the floor. She wasn't young, but not old either, 40-ish maybe. Hair pulled back in a loose braid, soft lines at the corners of her eyes, like someone who had seen more than she said. Her boots were scuffed. Her coat smelled faintly of clean laundry and a hint of cedar. "I'm Rachel," she said. "I know," Jade answered, not unkindly. "Margie filled me in. I'm just here to help. No pressure, no paperwork, no judging." Rachel swallowed hard. "I don't have a lot to give you. My husband's gone. I'm still paying off what he left behind." Jade looked up gently. "I'm not here for that, just the kids, and you." The way she said it, without pity, without performance, made Rachel's throat tighten. Later, as the nurses came in to prep Rachel for surgery, Jade guided the twins toward the window to watch the falling mist. She showed them how the raindrops made streaks on the glass, shaped like worms and snakes and invisible snowmen, as Noah dubbed them. Lily giggled. Rachel stared at the ceiling, her chest heavy with fear. She had been so careful these past months, rationing grief, refusing help, forcing herself to smile for the twins. And now, here she was, bleeding inside, unsure if she'd wake up again. She turned to Jade. "Would you stay with them?" she asked, voice trembling. Jade didn't hesitate. "Of course." Rachel closed her eyes briefly, then asked Margie for her phone. Her fingers were steadier this time. She canceled the bank transfer to her parents. Again. Then she opened her messages and typed another one. "I'm choosing my kids this time, not you." She sent it. Then she placed the phone on the tray table and reached out for Jade's hand. "Thank you," Rachel whispered, "for being here." Jade nodded once, covering Rachel's hand with her own. "You're not alone." The nurses began to wheel Rachel out. She kept her gaze on the twins until the door closed between them. Jade stayed kneeling on the floor beside the crib, humming something soft and slow. When they were gone, she rose, lifted Lily with practiced arms, and carried her to the chair by the window. Noah toddled over on his own, dragging his bunny by the ear. Jade cradled them both, wrapped in a hospital blanket, her arms steady and warm. The window framed the rain-slick street below, lit by string lights strung between lampposts. Savannah was quiet on Christmas morning. She began to hum again, a tune from long ago, one she hadn't sung in years. The twins relaxed into her. Jade glanced toward the nightstand, where a photo sat in a modest wooden frame. A man, tall and smiling, held two newborns in his arms. Her breath caught. She stared for a moment longer, then looked away, the song faltering only briefly. She said nothing. Rachel awoke to sunshine, a dull ache in her belly, and 27 missed calls from her parents. The hospital room felt different in the daylight. Warm beams slanted through the blinds, casting pale stripes across the bed sheets. A crocheted blanket, lavender and white, lay folded at the foot of the bed. It hadn't been there the night before. She touched it with her fingertips. Soft, handmade, comforting. A small card was tucked under one corner. "For your girls. M.A.E." Rachel shifted slowly, careful not to disturb the gauze at her side. Every movement sent a twinge through her core, but it was bearable now. Her eyes drifted to the twins' corner. Noah was kneeling in the crib, babbling to a toy giraffe. Lily had somehow pulled her blanket over her head and was snoring faintly beneath it. Jade sat in the recliner near the window, legs tucked under her, sipping from a paper coffee cup. She looked up and smiled, not the kind people give out of politeness, but one with quiet relief behind it. "You're awake," she said softly. Rachel nodded, her throat dry. "How long?" "Just past 7, Jade said. "You've been drifting in and out since yesterday afternoon. They say the surgery went well. Clean, no complications." Rachel breathed in slowly. The weight of uncertainty had lifted, but something heavier remained. She reached for her phone. The lock screen glared at her with its trail of red badges, missed calls, voicemails, unread texts. She opened the call log. 27 calls, most from her father, a few from her mother. No one had asked how she was. She played the first voicemail, her father's voice, clipped and irritated. "We just got a call from the bank about the mortgage. You can't just pull funding without notice, Rachel." The next one was angrier. Then came one from her mother, drenched in sugary concern that barely veiled the bitterness. "We're worried, honey, but you've put us in a really difficult position." None of them mentioned the surgery. None asked about the twins. Rachel closed her eyes. She knew this story too well, the way they always turned her pain into inconvenience. A soft knock came from the doorframe. Claire stepped inside, holding a Tupperware container and a hesitant expression. "I brought sweet potato casserole," she said. "Left over from Christmas dinner." Rachel blinked. "You're here." Claire sat down awkwardly, placing the dish on the side table. "I had no idea about the surgery. They told me it was a routine checkup." Rachel didn't answer. She didn't need to. Claire fidgeted with her scarf. "I should have checked. I should have asked you directly." Silence settled between them, broken only by Lily's soft snores. Rachel looked over at her sister, still wearing designer boots, still effortlessly composed, but there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Humility, maybe, regret. "They said you were being dramatic," Claire added quietly. "I believed them." Rachel swallowed, suddenly exhausted. Jade stood, nodding to the twins. "I'll take them for a walk around the floor. Give you two a moment." As she passed Claire, Jade offered a faint smile. Claire glanced at her, confused, but said nothing. When the door closed, Rachel leaned back. "They were never going to come, Claire, not for the surgery, not for the kids." Claire's voice cracked. "I really didn't know." "I believe you." They sat like that for a while, two sisters side by side, the years of misunderstanding not yet gone, but not quite present either. On the windowsill, a small basket rested beside the poinsettia. Inside, peppermint candies, a pack of tissues, and a note written in tidy block letters. "From a neighbor who's watching." "You're not invisible." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Did you leave this?" Claire shook her head. "Nope." Jade returned a few minutes later, holding Noah in one arm and balancing Lily on her hip. Rachel watched her, then smiled faintly. "You've got a gift," she said. Jade shrugged. "Just practice." Claire tilted her head. "You're not what I expected." Jade looked at her calmly. "Most people aren't." After Claire left, Jade settled into the chair again, flipping open a dog-eared copy of Tuesdays with Maury. Rachel chuckled. "That book's been following me since college." Jade grinned. "It's got some truth left in it." Rachel shifted, her stitches pulling slightly. "Did Maury ever talk about family disappointment?" "Page 63, Jade replied, without missing a beat. Rachel laughed softly, then winced. "Ow. Okay, don't make me laugh." They sat in silence for a while. The sun had risen higher now, brightening the faded green walls. The scent of cinnamon oatmeal drifted in from the hallway. Nurses walked past, exchanging nods and murmured greetings. Jade closed her book and looked up. "What was James like?" Rachel blinked. Jade waited. Rachel smiled for the first time in days. He believed in people, even when they didn't believe in themselves. "I hope you're satisfied," Roger's voicemail snarled. "Your stunt cost us our cruise." Rachel listened to it without expression, phone balanced on her lap, as she stirred oatmeal in slow circles. The steam curled toward the ceiling, carrying the scent of maple and cinnamon through the small apartment. Jade sat at the kitchen table with Lily on her lap, helping her trace lines in a coloring book. Noah was parked on the floor nearby, deeply focused on building a tower of mismatched blocks. Outside, the January morning glinted coldly. Frost clung to the window edges, and the bare branches of the oaks rattled softly in the breeze. Across the street, Mr. Whitaker swept his porch, bundled in a thick flannel coat and a hat pulled low. He paused once, glanced at Rachel's window, and gave a brief, curt nod. Rachel returned it with a faint lift of her fingers, then looked back at the phone. She scrolled past voicemails to the family email thread. Her father had taken the drama public. Rachel has unilaterally cut off her support without notice, jeopardizing our mortgage and long-term stability. We sacrificed for years to support her, and this is how she repays us. It was addressed to cousins, aunts, second cousins she barely remembered, and even her high school godmother. A new reply had just come in. Uncle Roger, if you can afford boat fuel, you can afford your own mortgage. Eddie Carver. Rachel snorted. She hadn't spoken to Eddie in months, but the bluntness of his reply felt like a bomb. Claire arrived just before lunch, carrying a cloth bag and an expression that hovered between concern and fury. They told everyone you'd abandoned them, she said, dropping the bag on the counter. Left them to starve, left them homeless. Rachel arched an eyebrow. And yet here they are, still in their house, still calling me 20 times a day. Claire pulled out jars of peach jam and a loaf of homemade bread. This is from Mom's pantry. She's clearing shelves for some reason. I think they're preparing to sell. Rachel sat down heavily. You think they'll actually admit they're broke? Claire shook her head. Not to anyone who matters. But I dug around. They took out a second mortgage last spring. Dad put $10,000 into some weird investment with his golf buddy. And apparently the timeshare, it's in collections. Rachel didn't answer. She picked up a piece of bread and broke it in half. They were counting on you to keep the illusion going, Claire said. You were their safety net. Not anymore. Jade, still at the table, looked up briefly. They always knew you'd say yes. Rachel met her gaze. That was the mistake. The three women sat in silence, the kitchen filled with the scent of jam and the slow creak of Noah's toy truck as he pushed it across the floor. The twins were oblivious to the adult tension, but Mr. Whitaker outside had paused his sweeping again. This time, when he looked toward the window, his nod was deeper, almost respectful. Later that day, Rachel received a final email from her father. This time, it was private. We need $144,000 to catch up and avoid foreclosure. That includes the second mortgage, taxes, and legal fees. Please reconsider. Your mother is distraught. No anger this time, just desperation. Rachel didn't reply. That night, after the twins had fallen asleep, she and Jade folded laundry in the living room. The fireplace video crackled quietly on the TV. The room was warm, the light soft. Jade smoothed a onesie with her palm, then paused. There's something about James I need to tell you. He saved my life, and he never knew it. Jade said it so quietly that Rachel almost thought she'd imagined it. The warmth from the fake fireplace flickered across their faces as they sat among piles of folded clothes, the twins' tiny shirts and socks arranged with care on the couch between them. Rachel turned her head slowly. What do you mean? Jade exhaled, folding a blanket with precise fingers. It was years ago. I was 17, living in a group home after a string of foster families, angry at everything, convinced no one gave a damn. Rachel stayed silent, letting her speak. There was this nonprofit in town that helped kids age out of the system, college applications, small scholarships, interviews, but no one noticed me. Not really, until the day I got an email from the director. She said someone had sponsored my application, said she'd never seen such a beautifully made personal website. Jade smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. There was a picture of me on the homepage, just me reading to a younger foster kid, a little quote about resilience. I hadn't even written it, but someone had taken the time to see me, frame my life like it mattered. Rachel's stomach twisted. She already knew what was coming, but she needed to hear it. It was your husband, Jade said softly. James. He was freelancing at the time, building websites for nonprofits. The director told me later he'd insisted on donating his time for a few cases each year. Mine was one of them. Rachel stared down at the onesie in her hands, suddenly unable to move. A lump had formed in her throat. I didn't know it was him when I first got here, Jade continued. Not until I saw the photo by your bed. He looked a little older than when I met him, but I never forgot his face. Rachel blinked quickly, the image of James holding the twins as newborns swimming in her vision. He never told me, she whispered. He never mentioned you. He wouldn't have, Jade replied. He didn't do it for thanks, he just did it. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was full, a shared knowing, a connection that stretched beyond time and loss. I kept the site, Jade added. Saved it on an old USB drive. I used it to get into a child development program. Got my license. I never had the chance to thank him, but now I get to thank you. Rachel shook her head, tears slipping down her cheek. You've done more than enough. Jade reached across the couch and took her hand. They didn't speak for a long time. Outside, the rain had started again, a soft, steady tapping against the windows. It was comforting, like an old rhythm returning. Later that evening, Claire called. She'd spoken to their parents again, said things were deteriorating fast. The house might be listed within the month. They're blaming you to everyone, Claire said. But some of the family, they're starting to question things. Rachel nodded, unsurprised. Let them talk. There was a knock at the door just before bedtime. Rachel peeked through the window. Mr. Whitaker stood on the porch, holding a small pie tin covered with foil. She opened the door, a little hesitant. Pecan, he said gruffly. My wife's old recipe. She passed a few years back, but the crust still remembers her hands. Rachel blinked. That's very kind. He nodded once, cleared his throat. I see a lot from that porch. Folks make up their minds too fast these days. She took the pie. Would you like to come in for tea? He hesitated. Then, slowly, he stepped inside. They drank jasmine tea in silence, the pie still warm, the room filled with the scent of cinnamon and brown sugar. The twins slept nearby. Jade sat quietly with her book, offering him a blanket when he started to shiver. After he left, Jade picked up a worn scrap of paper from her old bag. What's that? Rachel asked. Jade unfolded it. The wireframe for my scholarship site. James sketched it out by hand. The layout looked a lot like the memorial site you're building now. Rachel took it in her hands. Maybe he knew. Maybe he hoped, Jade replied. The next morning, a handwritten letter arrived. It's from Elaine. Watching you live without us, the letter read, has made me reflect on the mother I failed to be. Rachel stood by the kitchen counter, the letter spread open next to her cup of tea. The handwriting was familiar, neat, precise, almost too careful, as if each loop and stroke had been rehearsed. The twins were playing on the rug nearby, stacking plastic cups and giggling whenever one fell. The morning sun spilled through the windows, lighting up the small but warm apartment. Outside, birds chirped in the branches above Wright Square, and the smell of fresh grass drifted in through the screen door. She read the letter twice, then again. Elaine wrote about therapy, about long conversations with Roger that turned into arguments, then silence, then slow understanding. She wrote about watching their daughter choose a life without them, and realizing how little they had truly offered hers. There were no excuses in the letter, no veiled barbs, just a threadbare kind of honesty, the kind that only emerges when there's nothing left to lose. I resented your independence, the letter said. I told myself it made you cold, but now I see I was envious of the strength you had to build what we didn't. Claire had already read it and called that morning. I think they mean it, she said cautiously. I don't know if that changes anything, but it's more than I ever expected from them. Rachel didn't reply right away. She was watching the twins, watching the way Lily handed a cup to Noah like it was treasure, the way Noah gave her a shy high five. They were building something together. They were safe. Later that afternoon, Rachel agreed to meet her parents. She chose a quiet cafe near Wright Square, an open patio with iron chairs and a red brick floor. The air was soft with early spring, and the dogwoods were starting to bloom. She arrived first, ordered jasmine tea, and left a few dollars under the sugar jar for the server, like she always did. Mr. Whitaker passed by with his basset hound, tipped his cap without stopping. Roger and Elaine appeared 10 minutes later. They looked smaller, not just in body, but in presence. Roger no longer had that firm-shouldered authority. His shoulders sagged beneath a light gray jacket. Elaine wore plain flats and no jewelry. Her hair, usually lacquered into perfect place, was loosely clipped. They sat down slowly as if unsure they had the right. Rachel didn't speak first. She waited. Elaine cleared her throat. "You look well." Rachel nodded once. Roger glanced around. "We've started volunteering at the community garden. I haven't touched a shovel in years." Rachel raised her eyebrows. "That must be humbling." "It is," he said. They fell into an uneasy pause. The jazz trio nearby began a slow instrumental version of Moon River. Elaine leaned forward. "We're not here to ask for money." Roger nodded. "We're not. That ship has sailed and sunk." Rachel's lips almost twitched. "We just—" Elaine folded her napkin slowly. "We wondered if, someday, you might let us know your children." Rachel stirred her tea. She thought about the months of silence, the nights of fear, the moment in the hospital when her mother chose theater tickets over holding her grandchildren's hands. She met their eyes, calm and steady. "I'm their mother," she said, "and I won't let anyone close who doesn't respect that." They didn't protest, didn't beg, they just nodded. Roger wiped his glasses with a cloth he pulled from his pocket. "We understand." Rachel stood, smoothing her coat. She left a tip tucked neatly beneath the sugar jar again. "Goodbye," she said, her voice even. She didn't promise to call. She didn't hug them, but she didn't walk away angry. As she turned onto the cobblestone path back home, she saw Claire waiting near the corner, holding Lily on her hip, while Noah clutched a paper bag of crackers. Mr. Whitaker stood nearby, his dog sniffing at the grass. He looked up and said, "Told you she's stronger than she looks," to Claire. Rachel smiled. "This is home now.